C'est la première session de cette rencontre de 4 jours avec nous et je voudrais vous inviter à la suivre très bien. C'est des points très intéressants. C'est la réponse aux différentes attentes que vous avez exprimées. Merci beaucoup. You may have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. I'm sure by the end of 4 days, my French will be better. Oh, fantastic. Sure. While everybody's still fresh. Yes. So we're going to take group photographs now. So please put the powder as part of the mental health. Look at the face. Where's your mirror? Remove your mirror and look. Okay. And you need to begin to question the work you have done over the years. Because you can gain as much wonderful accolades and awards outside. But if your immediate circle, the men in your circle, do not understand where women need social and economic justice, where we need to reduce the gap for women in leadership, whether it's political leadership, and whether it's economic leadership. Why women and children down now in war, why when they are elected social justice and economic justice. And I just hope that, I can explain it as much as possible, and then we can engage. It's important that I also hear from you in terms of, how you are changing the dynamics of the work that you're doing. If you're doing the same thing you have done for 20 years, then there cannot be progress. We have to change with the times. We must understand social and economic justice in the light of the 21st century. We must understand it in the light of technology. We must understand it in the light of digital acres and digitalization. We must understand it as the world advances. We must understand that for artificial intelligence, what does it mean for us in the women's movement? So those are some of the things that we'll be looking at, just to break down what is understanding women's social and economic justice. Most of us work in this area, so it is really just taking us back to the granular, to the basics again, so that we understand it. And then you can now relate it in the light of the work you do and the changes that are happening across the world. One of the most important things I always say when we come together like this, it's very easy to want to stay in touch with women from your own region. It's easier. You can easily reach them. It's easy to talk with them. Maybe you speak the same language. But the critical mass of the work that we do, which is why organizations like WACSI exist, is to make sure that we increase the influence. So WACSI used to work in West Africa. But because times have changed, the times are still changing, they have to expand the scope of their work across Africa. Because that's the way it should be. We must be able to learn lessons from other regions. We must be able to work with other women from other regions. Sometimes you can have coalitions across borders. And we're going to see that a lot of issues, whether it's in terms of getting grants or funding, you must extend beyond where you are. So what is social justice? It's the condition in which all members of a society have the same basic rights. The concept of social justice and economic justice is, as most people will say, is a dream. It's something we wish that should be, because that is what it should be. If society was growing the way it should grow, everybody should have the same basic rights: right to health, right to life, right to education, right to security. Everybody should have the same basic rights. The social benefits within the society, it shouldn't be for some, and then some people don't get. I think it was Lara that said something about urban women and rural women. Some of us, in the urban city, we have running water. The women in the rural areas, they have to go and fetch water. Some of the basic rights, the social justice says that every human being should have some of these basic rights. Right to water, right to food. Social justice promotes the social functioning, the proper social functioning, how society should function, and basic rights of every human being. We're not talking about human rights, we're saying basic rights. What is your right as a human being? That's how we begin to think about it. So this is what social justice, within the society, there are certain basic rights that we should have as human beings. Social justice says that it's the idea that society gives individuals and groups fair treatment, and there is equity within the society. There is equity. It says that there's equity. Social justice also says that everyone deserves equal economic. So some people shouldn't have electricity or be able to afford electricity, while some people cannot afford it. Some people should be able to afford good health care services, while some people cannot. Social justice says we all deserve the same thing. In a society that is growing, we should have access to equal economic, political. So it's not just the land that should almost all the presidents are men. That's social justice says, no, we all went to school. Some of us are in the same class with this man. But the society we live in does not make it so. Social justice says this ought not to be so, that we should have the equal economic, equal political, social rights, and every other opportunities. Social justice is about distribution of wealth. So I've taken time to break it down in different layers so we can understand it. The work that you do as women organizations for social justice is really basically around this. My sister from South Africa that is in women in mines, you see, more often than not, women work in the mines as well, but they don't have the. Some of those women are raped in the mines by other miners. So in every single work that you do, there are issues that deal with this. So distribution of wealth, just and fair compensation or pay, human rights, awareness and responsibility. Social justice covers the criminal justice system. So there's a conversation we used to have in Nigeria, which was what created, I think it's only Lagos State in Nigeria, one state, that has a law that is called the Domestic Violence Response Team. That's women, and they have, they've trained different officers across different areas of the state, so that when a man beats a woman, the third one will go to the police station and the policeman will say, what did you do? Your mouth is too sharp. Your mouth, that's why. Yeah. So the idea of a proper criminal justice system is that women are not afraid to report. Women are not afraid to say, I was raped, and the rapist will go free. Social justice says that there should be a proper criminal justice system. We're not afraid that the law will not work in their favor. It covers poverty issues, and we know many of us work in the poverty area. The feminization of poverty is real. Women are poorer. Even though, if I say this, the men might not agree, but we work harder. Hello? Don't you agree? We work harder. Because my sister was saying about your mental health. And mental health is suffering. Because you do the work you have to do. You have to be nice to the man. You have to take care of the children. Then there are extended families. Your father will call you when he's married. Your mother will call you there's problem here. Then you have brothers and sisters. Then your husband's family. You have to be smiling all the time when they're around. Beaucoup problem. So these are the issues, you know. So feminization of poverty, women are poor. And these are all the issues that, you know, the social justice issues that we are looking at. The simple definition, it refers to the view that everyone deserves equal rights, equal opportunities, and treatment, irrespective of where they are from, their economic status, whether they're urban women, whether they're rural women, whether they're urban men, whether they're rural men, irrespective of their sexuality and gender identity. It's not a right or growing up. It's a human being. That's the basic for social justice. Then we move on and we say, how does this reflect in the women's movement? We're bringing it back home now. What does this mean for us as women? It can mean a lot of things. We can say, men and social justice, what that means for men. We can say, children and social justice, we're looking at issues around child's rights. We're looking at the protection of children in cases of conflict. But here we're looking at women and social justice. And I think it's important because of the role that women play. So we play the role as caretaker, we're educators, we're part of the workforce, we work, we're volunteers, we support households, like I said, a lot of things that we do. In many regions of Africa, women are the leaders of the home, the leaders of the household. Especially the leader one-parent households. They are the head of the family as well. When social justice and women are important. Women were equally important. The men are considered, particularly in Africa, as the leader of the household, and therefore they are superior to women. So even in households where the women are the leader, the women are still not respected within society because you're supposed to have a man. Do you understand what I mean? You're supposed to have a man. So it becomes a very critical issue, particularly in African societies where patriarchy is an issue. Women are generally supposed to be subordinate to men. So even though we are human beings, the context within which we operate, which also deals with the issue of social justice. So whether it's in the criminal justice system, whether it's the gender pay gap, whether it's in leadership positions, whether it's in politics, women are always put behind the men. And so in politics, so in Nigeria, for instance, one of the things, the work that I did last year was working with the Federal House of Representatives on political leadership. And some of the issues that were very clear was the political parties themselves are not ready to put out a woman as their primary candidates. Maybe the last 15 years in Africa, I've seen it across. They're not ready. That's what we are good for. Yes. 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 In the women's wing, they have me as the coordinator. That's the only position they like to give about. To say, oh, this is our governorship candidate, this is our presidential candidate, it's going to be a big problem. Yes. time I
depuis 1995, on parle de quotas de représentation des femmes dans les assemblées élues. Et en Côte d'Ivoire, nous avons eu une loi en 2019. Et cette loi, vraiment, ne fait pas la promotion des droits des femmes. On vous dit que la loi, cette loi demande 30% des femmes inscrites sur la liste électorale, sur les listes des partis politiques. 30%. Et en plus, on dit un parti politique ou groupement politique aurait plus de 50% de femmes inscrites, va avoir un financement supplémentaire. Et cette année, parce que le mois passé, ça fait 2 mois de cela, on a fait les élections locales, les hommes qui ne trouvaient pas de femmes inscrites sur la liste des partis politiques ont tous trouvé des femmes, trouvé les 30% de femmes inscrites sur la liste. Ça veut dire que cette loi ne fait même pas la promotion parce que les femmes n'arrivent pas à être là où elles doivent être. Et souvent, les têtes de liste sont la plupart des hommes. Pour vous dire qu'il n'y a pas de volonté, ni de volonté politique, et aussi les hommes ne sont pas prêts pour que les femmes soient quand même là où il faut. Donc, c'est aussi un travail que nous, les femmes, devons comprendre. Il faut trouver les stratégies pour voir comment est-ce qu'on peut contrecarrer cela. Merci.
Vraiment, vraiment. Go with her. Because in some countries, you have the quota. It's there, it's written there. You cannot fault them if you ask, there's a quota. But there's a deliberate attempt to make sure that even the quality of women, they bring on board. They're not going to bring women like you. You are going to give them trouble. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, yes, ma'am.
We actually had the same issue because we got the 30% in law and we used that in our elections. But this was a complaint that many women said and saying, women who had been campaigning, but at the forefront were passed over for others. And then the other thing that in opposition areas. So where the political party most, again, they have no chance, they will put women at the top of the list.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what is happening. That's what is happening. The smaller parties that nobody knows, they are the ones. So whether you like it or not, if you really want to question them, they will say to you, you have 30% women. We've seen that even in the position after our last election in Nigeria, and the same issue about the quota. So women ministers, women in leadership positions, and then it was more like tokens, that were placed there. So until we understand that this is a critical issue for societal growth, society cannot grow if we continue like this. And so that's why whatever kind of work we're doing, whether you're working in children's rights, whether you're working, whatever area you're working in, we must understand that women in leadership, not just in political leadership, but in everyday life leadership, is the criteria for growth and sustainability within African societies. We understand the mechanisms of grassroots mobilization. So the men will use you to mobilize. But we don't talk about negotiating. So maybe sometime we're going to have a workshop on negotiation. One of the things I have found over the years that women don't negotiate. What is negotiation? And we're going to see it on the last day when we talk about managing power and influence. About negotiation. Many of the men that are placed there, they get there by negotiation. What is it for me? If you mobilize 30,000 women for you, what is it for me? We'll give you women chairman, women association. Well, it's not a problem. It's okay. we can't continue like that. If we are talking about equity within the society, it's important to understand that if you look at the next thing here, it says social norms and values are biased in favor of men. So in politics, they'll say to you, you can't come out at 2 a.m. when we have meetings. And one woman will say, oh, my husband will not allow me to come out. So you must understand, when you're digging for leadership, what exactly do you want? And how do you want it? How much do you want it? Until we ask ourselves those questions as African women, we won't get what we want. How much do I want it? We work in the trenches, but when it gets to power, we're not ready to work in the trenches. We're not ready. And that's a critical issue. Because you must always understand that the reason why women and social justice is important is that the odds are against us on all sides. So my sister talked about mental health, and I know that because it's so critical. So you're working, you're on the field working, you're in the movement, you're going, and then maybe that's the period your menstruation will come and you have menstrual cramps. And you are cranky, you are angry. How many of you said that I went and removed my wig? The heat. You know, it was so hot. So you can imagine you have something to do and then your body system is totally working against you. So we have a lot of things working against us in the work that we do. And that's why having a proper social justice and economic system that works for everybody is what we must drive at every given point in time. The last point I said, even as daughters, so from childhood, in many African societies, it's only now that things are changing a bit. But it's so small. Daughters are told, you know, they should behave in a certain way, you should sit down in a certain way, you shouldn't shout when you are talking, you should stand properly, this is the way to dress. But they're allowed to do whatever they're doing. And that's why it's important that if you're in the women's movement and you have voice, and your boys don't understand what is important to women, you are a problem to us in the women's movement. I want to say it very openly. If the people that are in a circle do not respect women, in fact, when you are around, if they used to be misbehaved, when you are around, everybody sits up. Because they know that you are not just an advocate out there, you are an advocate inside your house. Because there's so many things that are working against us in the first place. I'm going to try and run through this because I also want us to work with time. These are the principles. The principles for social justice. Yes, very important. If you don't have access to these things, then you can't get them. If there are no opportunities to get them, then they can't come to us. Diversity. The ability that everybody, irrespective of who they are and what they are they women from the villages? Are they women that have never gone to school? But in fact, they should have access to education. They should have access to knowledge. Sometimes, especially in this world, we're no longer confusing education with just going to school. Education can be acquired in different ways. That's why we have adult learning. We have village schools, we have night schools. So the ability to have that access means that diversity becomes important, irrespective of who those people are. There may be men who have never seen an airplane before, but they should have access to what is the basic right. Equity, equal opportunities, we've talked about that. Participation, and of course, human rights. In the context of Africa, again, so we're breaking it down. I've broken it down in the context of women and social justice. Now, in the context of Africa, what are some of the issues that we're dealing with? Gender equality. We're still talking about gender equality. We're still talking about gender equality. After 20 years, we're still talking about it. Equality, equity, The conversations are still happening. We cannot, is there any sector of society you can say that there is now equity, gender equity, within a region? Is there any sector of society? Maternal mortality health is still very high in most African societies. In fact, in Nigeria, it's so bad. It's a shame. I think about, I'm always ashamed. But in almost all African society, maternal mortality rate is still very high. So this, which part of society, education, girl child, school children, we have over 14 million. The girl child takes about 70% of that in my country. So again, we look at it, education access, healthcare access, economic empowerment, political representation. These are the issues we have in Africa in terms of social justice, violence and discrimination, culture and social norms. Culture is still a big issue. I did strategy for political candidates in my country. In fact, I've learned so much over the years because I've done like 4 as, you know, the behind the scenes strategist for most of the campaigns. And it's funny how they want you to drive their campaign. But when you want to address certain things, you say, no. Men are talking here. Men are talking here. Women should wait. How many of us have experienced that? Of course, I'm sure we've experienced it in the work that we do every day. Men are talking here as if men have 3 heads and women have half. So we say it all the time, the culture and the social norms are still part of the reasons why we keep talking, and we have to keep talking about social justice. So these are the concerns. So when we talk about social justice, this is what we're talking about, all of the core issues. Then we look at economic justice. It's a subset of social justice. But society cannot thrive without economy. We need money. They need money. So economic factors significantly impact a lot of social equality issues or social justice issues. As I said earlier, women are poorer. So that in itself creates an imbalance in the society. Urban and rural migration, there's an imbalance in society. Between the educated and non-educated, imbalance. So all of this, these are the things that create tensions. You can imagine when you're talking or you're not speaking to 7 people that are not educated. How do they feel? So most times, how do they feel? Hello, ladies, are we together? How do they feel? I want you to share your experience. If, for example, even the work that you do when you go to the rural communities and you're trying to ginger women around certain issues, how do they feel? Some of them will feel, oh, is it because you went to school? Do you understand what I mean? You went to school or you're looking nice, you wear nice dress. I remember when we used to, yes.
Alors, je pense qu'à ce niveau, il y a plusieurs réactions que nous avons. Il y a peu de femmes qui sont très ouvertes à recevoir ce que vous êtes venus leur apporter, mais il y a également la grande majorité qui se disent que vous êtes beaucoup plus privilégiés à tous les niveaux et que vous portez votre manteau de femme privilégiée pour venir dans la communauté et leur apprendre comment est-ce qu'elles doivent vivre, comment est-ce qu'elles doivent fonctionner. Donc, voilà les 2 réactions que nous avons.
Excellent. So, I remember we were doing some work with Lima, and that was just after the Liberian War. And we had dressed up, and we were supposed to go and meet some of those women. And one of the ladies said to us, we had to change the way we were dressing, you know. Some of us had wigs and all that, and we had to take off our wigs. We tie scarf. What's this kind of scarf? You know those scarf you tie like a village woman. That's how we dressed. And it was not acceptable. So I agree with what she's saying, that some of them think, look, you're privileged. Because some of the things we take for granted, many of them don't have access to it. I remember doing some work for an organization, and those organizations provide eyeglasses to rural communities. And I had gone on a field project with them because one of the things that I was supposed to do for the organization was impact assessment. And you will imagine that there were people whose eyesight were totally damaged. They can't read anything. But they move around like that because they don't even understand what it means that you can have eyeglasses. So imagine going to speak to such women. They don't understand. The economic aspect of their life is around what they live and survive on a day-to-day basis. So we cannot have social justice. We can't have social justice in our communities without economic justice. It is so important. The resources, so when we talk about employment, fair wages, financial security, these are issues that we understand. We need to break it down in the way that they will understand, because it's the same thing for them. Many of them, their employment is their, whatever they do in their local communities. And so if, for example, services we have in the urban communities don't get to the rural communities, how then will they have employment? How then will they be talking about financial security when their lives is all about survival and not financial security? You see the difference? There's survival and there's financial security. Financial security means you just want more to be comfortable. Survival means you don't know where the next meal is going to come from. And we still have a lot of that. In almost all the sectors, I can't talk of, I think it was 5 years ago that I learned that there were schools in Lagos State that they pay 25, how would you say 25,000 naira every month. That's less than $1. It's not even up to $1. It's not up to 50 cents, Abi. 25,000 in today's naira. That's not a lot of money. Who can help me calculate that? Nimisire, what's 25,000 naira? In USD, yes. 25,000 naira a year. Yes, so divided by 12. So that's what they pay. And these women are those women that sell oranges, they sell banana by the roadside just to send their children to school. Just because they want access to education. So economic justice begins to say that it is so important because the impact on marginalized communities in terms of social justice becomes very, very high. So a lot of these communities don't have the access that we're talking about that makes it easy for them. A lot of the policy and governance we have also need to be able to address these economic disparities. So when we're talking of, equal access to education and welfare, equal access to healthcare, all of these things become important. So breaking it down again, what is economic justice? Economic justice means the economy will be more successful if it is fairer. If everybody has access to work that is able to make their lives better. It doesn't have to be office work. It doesn't have to be the kind of employment that we think, but whatever it is that they're doing, that they are able to have enough to take care of their basic social needs. And that is it. So it says the economy will be fairer, to be more successful, it is fairer, and then the goal is to create opportunities for everyone to thrive. Once we're able to do this, then we have economic justice. So in advocating for social and economic justice, you must understand what the issues are. If you understand the issues, you can align it to the work that you do. So in advocating for women in mining, what are you advocating for? You need to be able to contextualize it within the basics of social and economic justice. The fact that we're not sure that the economy is successful, so that perhaps works towards the policies, towards governance, towards the availability of this key metrics, key data that is needed within society. So now let's look at the two together. The focus of economic justice is financial and monetary aspects of society. When social justice, it looks at the other dimensions, political, economic, and cultural aspects. The core, it focuses on addressing economic inequalities. Inequalities and promoting economic equity. This addresses inequalities such as discrimination and systemic barriers. Barriers within the system that does not allow people to do better. We know those barriers. In fact, some of us unconsciously have also become gatekeepers. We've become gatekeepers. So you see opportunities. I think Laura gave her a fantastic example of when she first started work. You see opportunities, but you are not thinking of another woman. That's not the first person that comes to your mind. So we must have this consciousness around the fact that if it's this, the work we do within the women's movement, then we must be conscious about the systemic barriers that exist already, and we shouldn't add to it. It also looks at, so the key aspects of it, wealth distribution and access to economic opportunities. That's for economic justice. For social justice, it says equal representation. So whether it's in politics, whether it's in the economic sphere, whether it's in business, in whatever area of society, equal representation. Men and women should be represented. Fair treatment. Nobody should be treated better than the other. And then opportunities for all individuals. So looking at it and breaking it down, how do you build a sustainable society? Because when we talk about sustainable development, what are we talking about? We're talking about social and economic justice. That's the heart of sustainable development. If you look at the SDGs, the 17 indicators, each one of them takes a core aspect of either economic or social justice and breaks it down. So society, we're looking at welfare, equal opportunity, maintenance of human capital, that's the human beings. And then economy, of course, all the issues, production and consumption, employment, efficiency and competitiveness, the ability to be able to compete in the business that you do. And then the environment as well, you know, the natural resources that we have. I think yesterday evening, we had a pre-workshop meeting, and we're talking about certain countries in Africa, where the resources are so much. There's gold, there's uranium, there's all sorts. But the political class are selling it to all other countries, to France, to all these other countries, and using the money for themselves, but not for the growth of the country. And so all the natural resources, so the ability to combine every single thing, whether in society, economy, and the environment, that's what creates sustainable development. So right now, I want us to talk about some of the challenges. Around social and economic justice in Africa. What are some of the challenges? So we've talked about the political challenges. What other challenges exist within your regions, within the work that you do, within your networks? What are some of these challenges that you've seen? You've worked on this area for empowerment for women, but the women are not empowered. You know, we've seen empowerment, that women are given empowerment, and They give the money to their husbands to start business. The man says, I will do a better business. And they give the empowerment money to the man to start the business. And then the man marries a second wife. When the business starts booming, and the woman still has to suffer to take care of her children anyways. So we've had different kinds of experience, but I want to look at the unique challenges that exist. I want to open up the mic and let us talk about it. Anybody can start. Within the work that you do, within your network, what are some of the challenges you've seen to women's social and economic justice issues? And it can be anything, please, so we can discuss it. I think we're doing good for time. Yep. Yes, please.
Merci beaucoup. Moi, je vais aborder 2 points qui me semblent essentiels. Le premier point, c'est là où vous avez terminé sur tout ce qu'on a fait concernant l'autonomisation économique des femmes. On s'est rendu compte qu'il y avait beaucoup d'argent qui était investi pour l'autonomisation des femmes, mais finalement, les femmes n'étaient pas réellement autonomes. Parce que tout simplement, elles n'ont pas le pouvoir de décision sur les ressources dont elles disposent. Donc aujourd'hui, que ce soit nos gouvernements, on a beaucoup plaidé pour que vraiment des programmes nationaux, que vraiment l'appui soit institutionnalisé pour avoir cette autonomisation-là. Mais on s'est rendu compte que ce n'est pas devenu une réalité à cause justement de l'absence aujourd'hui de pouvoir sur les ressources. Et ça, c'est une question essentielle qui nous a amené, nous, en tout cas, en tant que réseau, à revoir la question même ou le terme même d'autonomisation pour aller plus loin. Parce que pour nous, il faudrait vraiment aller vers l'empouvoirment. On sait qu'il y a beaucoup de concepts, il y a vraiment toute une discussion autour des concepts, mais il faudrait aujourd'hui arriver vraiment à mettre la question du pouvoir au centre de nos actions et de nos initiatives, parce que tout simplement, on aura beau faire beaucoup de choses, mais si finalement la femme n'a pas le pouvoir de décision, donc cela pose tout un tas de problèmes. Donc moi, je pense que c'est un premier point qui me semble intéressant. Le second point, c'est par rapport à la participation politique des femmes. Je pense qu'il y a un aspect qui est extrêmement important, c'est tout ce qu'on a fait pour avoir les lois sur le quota, la loi sur la parité. Donc, au Sénégal, où on a expérimenté la loi sur la parité, on a vu qu'aujourd'hui, dans les instances électives et semi-électives, on est arrivé à avoir beaucoup de femmes. Mais quelles femmes? C'est vrai qu'elles sont capacitées, mais on oublie souvent que les femmes qui sont dans ces instances ne sont pas forcément féministes et ne portent pas forcément la question des droits des femmes comme étant une priorité. Donc, elles vont préférer aujourd'hui de s'aligner dans leur logique de parti politique ou de coalition de partis politiques, au lieu finalement de mettre la problématique de la question des droits des femmes au centre de leurs interventions. Donc c'est pourquoi il est important, et on le dit dans nos espaces féministes, qu'il est important que les féministes affirmés qui travaillent sur ces questions soient aussi engagés en politique pour pouvoir vraiment produire des changements, produire de l'impact en tout cas dans nos initiatives et arriver vraiment à l'égalité des sexes. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Yes. Oui, moi, je veux plutôt revenir sur aussi l'expérience qu'on a en Afrique centrale. Je pense que ça peut aussi toucher d'autres sous-régions du continent. Il y a le problème des textes nationaux et internationaux concernant les droits des femmes. On est à 20 ans aujourd'hui du protocole de Maputo. Nous, dans les instances judiciaires, par exemple, au Cameroun, on remarque qu'il y a encore beaucoup de lois nationales qui sont discriminatoires envers les femmes. Et parfois, la Constitution camerounaise, en tout cas, nous dit que les textes internationaux en tout cas, on a une suprématie par rapport aux textes nationaux. Parfois, quand on arrive devant ces juridictions, en attendant ces textes-là pour juger certains cas, on se rend compte qu'on a encore des détails. Il y a certains qui ne connaissent pas encore justement ces textes internationaux-là. Et voilà le problème auquel on fait face. La présence des textes, oui, mais ces textes ne sont pas implémentés, ne sont pas mis en œuvre ou alors sont encore discriminatoires. Et ça, c'est un problème auquel on fait face, en tout cas dans notre sous-région. Merci.
Thank you very much. I want to start from the perspective of a woman leader. Most of the women are really poor. the poverty in the women do not allow us to believe in ourselves. Even when you want to help a woman, a man has an age to convince her that you are a street woman, that you are wise and going up and down, that she will not listen to you. And every right that comes into the community, the men takes it. So how do we empower ourselves for women to stand on their feet and even begin to discuss our issues, and also to know that empowerment does not mean that you are above the man. You are still under him, but that the man should do the right thing, and he should give you a breather to join other women in knowing your rights. So we have a long way to go. If you call a woman to attend a meeting, she cannot even pay her local transport. We are very poor. Thank you.
Okay. I will take some more. Let me just deal with some of these issues. I like the challenges that we are raising. And so my sister just said something. Yes, the poverty of women is a clear issue. The feminization of poverty is something that I'm not sure a lot of even women movements can really say that they found a way to change it. And that's why we're still using the word empowerment of women. We're still using that word empowerment of women. And I hope that we're going to get to the point where we don't use that word of empowerment of women. But because of the poverty level of the women in Africa, a lot of them still need to be empowered. And empowerment does not only mean money. I hope we understand that. So, which brings me to the next thing I want to say. One of the reasons why there has been no traction, no movement within the women's movement is because we still think that the men have to allow us. How do you say allowing? Permission, to give us permission to, excusez-moi, monsieur, je vais, how do you say it? I want to, je vais manger. Monsieur will say, no, to manger. Today, you are not going to eat. That is how we still see the women's movement. So we're asking for permission to be in politics. We're asking for permission to be in leadership. We're asking for permission to be empowered. We need to begin to change that. Tu comprends? I hope my translator is, you understand what I mean? It's important because most of these issues, and we're going to look at all the challenges, but I really needed to really tackle that issue, that until we understand, yes, the African culture has made patriarchy like that. But one of the things I learned very quickly is that women are very powerful, but we don't know our power. A woman who has known her power is a very dangerous woman, because you don't know how, but she will get you to do everything. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So this power you want to take by force, no, they will give it very willingly, very happily, without fighting. Until the women's movement, our networks understand. And that's why I'm so happy that one of the topics we're dealing with is power dynamics. It's so important. I teach power dynamics in the academia because you find a lot of women are extremely intelligent. They have doctorate degrees. They are so widely read, but they don't get to professor levels at the same rate that men who are less than them do. So we see it in every sector. We see it everywhere because we're waiting to be allowed. So I want us to take note of that, even as we talk about the challenges. Because one of the things I want us to find out is that, are we still in that place? If we're still in that place, we've been there in the past 20 years. In this women's movement in Africa, we've been there. And if we're still there, in 2023, then it's going to take us another 20 years to change the dynamics. So please, I want us to take note of that. It's so important. Okay, so I think we finished with that table, so I'll come to this table. Yes.
Moi, c'est juste pour appuyer ce que vous venez de dire. Parce que nous, actuellement, au Mali, nous avons un cas précis de ce genre. Moi, je pense que les femmes, on doit un peu jouer sur leur mentalité. En ce qui concerne les us et les coutumes. Actuellement, on a nommé une femme ministre et avant sa nomination, on s'est rendu compte que son mari ne la considérait pas. Et du jour au lendemain, dès qu'elle a été nommée ministre, maintenant, le comportement du mari a changé. Et là, après, d'après les enquêtes, on s'est rendu compte que les décisions qu'elle prenait ne venaient pas d'elle, mais les décisions venaient de son mari. Mais elle est là à se laisser faire parce que l'affection qu'elle attendait de son mari, maintenant, est venue à point nommé. Et là, actuellement, elle est à deux doigts de perdre son poste, en fait. Parce qu'on sent que le mari a essayé de faire un projet énorme qu'elle a donné à sa femme. Et la femme a voulu soumettre ça au président de la transition. Et là, on a dit, on a soumis ce projet-là et on a vu que ce projet, c'était un projet vraiment ambitieux. Donc, on a écrit sur ce projet pour pouvoir l'abroger. Mais on sent qu'elle a été nommée parce qu'elle a la capacité. Elle a la capacité. On ne la connaissait pas. C'est à travers des enquêtes qu'elle a été nommée. On sait qu'elle a la capacité. Mais pourquoi elle se fait par son mari, à force de perdre ce qu'elle a acquis en tant que femme? Donc, vraiment, il faut que les femmes aient la conscience que si elles ont, elles sont capables. Il faut qu'on essaye d'avancer, de laisser les autres coutumes, mais de les utiliser à bon escient. Voilà.
Et moi, je voudrais aussi amender dans le même sens. Pour dire que c'est vrai que aujourd'hui, les femmes sont soumises à beaucoup de difficultés, à beaucoup d'obstacles, mais il y a certaines femmes qui sont sorties de l'eau. Et ces femmes-là ne doivent pas oublier les autres femmes, surtout qu'il faut travailler en milieu rural. En milieu rural, permettre aux femmes de se faire confiance et pour pouvoir faire changer les choses. Moi, j'ai dit changer les choses parce que je me dis que dans notre combat, il faut dire qu'on veut changer les choses, mais on ne veut pas renverser les choses. Tout à l'heure, vous avez dit qu'une femme qui connaît son pouvoir, elle peut tout avoir. Donc, il faudrait que nous ayons conscience de ce pouvoir-là et pouvoir l'exploiter. Et celles qui ont eu la chance d'être de l'autre côté, pensent aussi à celles qui sont en bas. Aujourd'hui, quand vous voyez les femmes dans la société civile, nous faisons tout pour qu'elles soient dans les postes des instants de prise de décision. Mais une fois qu'elles sont là-bas, elles oublient celles qui sont à la queue. Et regardez les femmes qui sont féministes et autres. Combien de femmes sont directeurs de cabinet? Très peu. Alors qu'on a des compétences féminines qui peuvent être là. Donc, comme elle a dit, il faudrait que les féministes les engagent maintenant dans la politique. Nous avons toujours défendu les femmes politiques, mais une fois qu'elles sont là-bas, elles oublient les autres femmes. Donc, il faut mettre les femmes en confiance en renforçant les capacités, en leur montrant qu'elles peuvent, elles ont beaucoup de choses potentielles en elles qu'on doit mettre en avant. Merci.
Thank you. So the other thing I was thinking is that so often we focus on the training of women. I mean, this is one of the things that we've been talking about in our organization. When there's a larger, you mentioned it, but there's a larger context in which we're embedded and other things are happening. So again, in Sierra Leone, we have legislation that says it's okay to discriminate against a woman if it's based on culture and tradition. We have a political party that essentially says if you go outside or against your party, then you can be pressured. So when you ask women to be campaigning on women's issues, if the political party says, oh, you shouldn't be, you actually need to toe the party line or we can expel you. So I'm trying to think, how do we address those larger structural inequalities that women are embedded? And one thing is, how do we push synergy between our social movements, between our women's organizations and our political women? Because they often feel like once they get elected, we leave them alone. How do we support them in order to change some of these things? How do we get conversations going around constitutional reform so we change some of the issues in the Constitution? How do we change the way it gets called?
Yeah, thank you. And I think I agree with all what my colleagues have said on this table. Africa is highly embedded in traditions, customs, and so on. And at this age and time, and we still have men that believe that women are their subordinates. We have proverbs saying that consolidate that subordination. So for instance, in Ghana, they will say that a woman sells pepper, but not gunpowder. So all these things goes to consolidate women's insubordination. Even in our constitutions where it promotes equal opportunities, non-discrimination and all that. When it comes to promoting women's rights, societal attitude, and then customs precede constitutions. Meanwhile, the constitution should have overriding power, but then you go to communities, you go to and you see that their traditions supersede constitution. All these are problems. We keep training our girl child to be good women, good wives, whilst our boys will be sitting down doing nothing. So if we don't change the narrative, then it will be difficult. And I think we've all talked about it. We need to train our girls to realize their power within. By training our girls, we also need to educate our boy child. It's policy, when we look at policymakers, it's men that are there. So whilst changing the narrative, we also need to change the consumption, the attitude of men to ensure that we all work together because we are partners in progress. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes.
Merci beaucoup. S'il vous plaît, je voudrais qu'on pense à l'implication des hommes. L'implication des hommes, c'est-à-dire de sensibiliser par rapport, de sensibiliser par rapport à la justice sociale et économique, surtout en termes d'autonomisation financière des femmes. C'est pourquoi je le dis, on peut remarquer dans cette totalité au Québec que le nombre de femmes qui ont eu l'opportunité d'avoir des accès financiers ou de prêts, alors que les n'arrivent pas à payer ou à rembourser les prêts. Parce que au sein de leur foyer, le mari fait les responsabilités, mais ils voient que leurs femmes ont de l'argent, ils ne subviennent plus, voilà, ce genre plus, c'est de la femme qui a tout fait. Donc ça fait que le maman s'embête et n'arrive pas à payer les prêts. Donc il faudrait que nos maris, nos hommes, soient mieux sensibilisés sur la question. Que si la femme a de l'argent, ça ne veut pas dire qu'elle a le pouvoir financier total au sein d'un foyer et que l'homme doit faire ses responsabilités. Merci.
Thank you.
So first, I'd like to thank you for the brilliant presentation. And I think one major challenge is that our government in Africa, they don't have the political will, they lack the political will to ensure that they create an enabling environment to promote social and economic justice for women. Why do I say this? In Liberia, we have found it difficult to get the gender quota enacted into law. Even during my Ellen Johnson time, it was difficult. We were unable to pass that into law. In 3 days, region, we work along with a lot of stakeholders in civil society groups to ensure that we work, but it was difficult. So we decided to look at our elections law to ensure that political parties will commit themselves to same political, the listing with not less than 30% of female gender on the listing. We have funding for international partners, we work with our national legislature, but it was difficult. Just imagine we are just for elections in Nigeria. All of the 105 candidates that were contesting in the election, we only have 159 women contesting. And it was so difficult to get some of the women nominated on the political party tickets because that's the funny, you don't have the economic strength of their new counterpart. And only 9 women were elected in this election. So you see the kind of difficulty that women face. Including as society actors. If you look in Liberia, the men institutions receive more money than women institutions. Sometimes we go to our partners and try to lobby and give them why this is the case. Sometimes they say, oh, we lack capacity, but what are you doing to get the capacity of the women groups to ensure that they receive more money so that they can be able to advocate for women issues? Finally, we are working with the new elected government to ensure that they appoint more women on the political, doing the appointment. So the presentation was great. I'm going to borrow some of the brilliant ideas that we discussed so that we can retweet our advocacy message to give it to this incoming government to ensure that we appoint more women in the government. Thank you very much.
Merci. Je voulais ajouter des choses à ce que les autres ont dit. En premier, le challenge, c'est le fait que nous, en tant que mouvement de femmes, en tant que réseau de femmes, en tant que féministes, nous ne nous asseyons pas pour questionner nos stratégies. Parce que depuis plusieurs années, nous sommes en train de faire plusieurs actions pour faire avancer l'autonomie financière, l'autonomie sociale des femmes, pour aller atteindre la justice sociale et économique. Mais on ne s'assoit pas pour voir est-ce que cette stratégie-là marche. Quel est le manquement de cette stratégie-là? On est tous plus ou moins conscients du fait que nous sommes dans un continent très religieux qui respecte beaucoup les normes, les coutumes, mais aussi les religions. Mais à quel moment nous sommes assis pour voir comment nous pouvons utiliser les bons côtés de cette religion, de nos us et coutumes, pour pouvoir influencer la condition des femmes. Et à quel moment questionnons nos religions? Parce que moi, je suis chrétienne, et il y a quelques années, on a dit que normalement, les femmes ne peuvent pas être pasteurs dans l'église. Et c'est maintenant que ça change parce qu'il y a plusieurs personnes qui osent questionner pourquoi est-ce que la femme ne devrait pas prendre la parole. Et on se rend compte que c'est le contexte dans lequel sur la liste, il y a au moins 30% de femmes, c'est leur intérêt stratégique qui est mis en jeu. Comment est-ce que et même leur réalité? Si on prend par exemple, au Togo, la moitié des écoles publiques n'ont pas de toilettes. Et ça discrimine les filles que les garçons, parce que les filles peuvent aller pisser au bord du mur, en dehors. Mais les filles et les femmes, surtout celles qui sont en aide, ont de grandes difficultés à accéder à l'école. Moi, je peux avoir des simplement. Modernisons les femmes, de ces élèves-là, et disons-leur de menacer l'école, dire que si vous n'installez pas des périodes d'ici 6 mois, nous allons venir nous asseoir à l'école et peut-être nous mettre nous devant l'école pour que ça change. Et qui sont mobilisés juste pour que les filles et les garçons aient accès à les toilettes. Pour moi, c'est de pouvoir nous asseoir et penser à ces stratégies d'activisme communautaire. Ces stratégies où nous, en notre position de femmes privilégiées, éduquées, qui comprennent ces enjeux-là, ne venons pas juste dans les communautés pour leur expliquer les enjeux, mais où on les fait participer aux solutions. Parce que nous-mêmes, on refuse le fait que des blancs viennent nous dire comment est-ce que nous avons nos conditions en Afrique. Parce qu'eux
femmes doivent donc accepter que nous, femmes urbaines, tenons leur dire comment vivre leur vie. Donc, moi, nous devons vraiment penser à comment nous mobilisons communautairement les femmes, comment nous mobilisons les femmes à la base pour qu'il y ait un changement réel depuis la base avant qu'il y ait des répercussions à des niveaux plus hauts. Merci beaucoup.
Okay. So I still have this table. Then sorry. I still have this table so that I will come back. So can we just keep the comments short because I want us to work with time, and then we're still going to go through all of this again. So I think there was somebody here. Yes, please.
Merci de me donner la parole. Je ne vais pas répéter ce que les autres ont dit par rapport au pouvoir et à tous les problèmes que rencontrent les femmes. Je voudrais seulement partager l'expérience de l'UDAF Afrique de l'Ouest. Ils viennent de lancer le mouvement, c'est 4% pour elles aussi. Et cet atelier a regroupé les UDAF des pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Et nous sommes partis d'un constat, et surtout par rapport à la participation des femmes africaines à la vie politique. Et nous avons alors inventorié tous les engagements que les chefs d'État africains ont pris en faveur de la parité, que ce soit au poste nominatif ou au poste électif. Et c'est sur cette base que le mouvement 50% pour elle aussi a été initié, qui est un projet à conduire en Afrique pour demander aux chefs d'État de respecter leur engagement et d'appliquer la parité à tous les niveaux de la vie politique, économique et sociale. Mais avant ça, il faut, comme nous l'avons dit, un travail doit être fait en amont, renforcer la capacité des femmes sur la dynamique de pouvoir, le leadership politique, la confiance en soi, la solidarité, puis surtout la collaboration entre les femmes défenseurs des droits des femmes et les femmes politiques. Si je prends seulement le cas du Togo, nous avons une femme présidente de l'Assemblée nationale. Nous avons une femme premier ministre. Le secrétaire du gouvernement est une femme. Sans compter toutes les autres femmes qui occupent les postes stratégiques dans notre pays. Mais si je prends le cas de la présidente de l'Assemblée, d'ici quelques mois, elle va finir son mandat de 5 ans. Quelle a été la collaboration entre cette femme et nous, en tant que défenseur des droits des femmes? Nous avons pu saisir cette opportunité pour discuter avec elle, pour voir comment elle peut booster le combat que nous menons pour l'égalité, pour faire promouvoir, pour faire avancer les droits des femmes pour tout. Donc ça a été un débat qu'on a vraiment abordé pour dire que nous ne devons pas travailler en base clos, nous devons aller vers ces femmes. Et en amont, comme je l'ai dit, il faut que les femmes soient formées, qu'elles sachent qu'elles, quand elles sont nommées là, ce n'est pas seulement pour défendre les intérêts du parti politique pour lequel elles sont à ce poste. C'est aussi de savoir qu'elles ont une base derrière elles, qu'elles ont aussi du travail à faire pour faire avancer les droits des femmes. Et donc, on va avancer et nous continuons. Il y a l'appui d'un partenaire qui va appuyer pour que le plaidoyer. Et surtout, les pays qui vont organiser des élections d'ici 2025, et là, dans ces pays-là, les femmes doivent œuvrer pour que les femmes soient élues, pour faire en sorte que chef d'État respecte leur engagement, pour que les femmes, pour briser toutes les barrières qui empêchent les femmes de briguer au poste électif.
Thank you so much. Yeah, any other person from that table? Yes.
Merci. Moi, je voudrais juste dire que nous avons beaucoup d'OSC qui parlent de la défense des droits des femmes. Je pense qu'il y a un travail de fond à faire à la base. Parce que si les femmes et les filles ne sont pas formées, si les femmes et les filles ne sont pas formées sur le leadership féminin et comment faire un plaidoyer, comment s'organiser, nos aînés qui sont en haut Eux, ils seront en train de faire le travail en haut là-bas. Mais à la base, si la base ne connaît pas ses droits, ne sait pas maîtriser réellement ce qu'est son droit ou bien comment mener le leadership, le travail ne pourra pas aller. Est-ce que les filles d'aujourd'hui, si on ne les forme pas, nos femmes au village, parce que même en haut, si on fait, on viendra en bas. Et quand elles ne sont pas formées, ça ne va pas apporter. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was supposed to go to that table. Okay, quickly. Thank you.
Alors, il est temps de partager peut-être l'expérience du Bénin avec vous sur la participation politique des femmes. Il y a eu beaucoup de projets pour accompagner les femmes parce que dans le passé, les partis politiques disaient qu'ils ne trouvent pas la compétence qu'il faut chez les femmes en question. Et leur priorité, c'est que les femmes les accompagnent pour voter, pour applaudir, pour la nourriture. Donc, les associations, les ONG vont réfléchir sur quoi faire pour changer la donne. Donc, beaucoup de programmes pour former les femmes en leadership, communication politique, engagement politique. Et en même temps, il y a eu l'introduction de la loi sur la parité à l'Assemblée nationale qui a été rejetée. Pourquoi? Parce que ce sont les hommes qui devraient voter là-bas. Et actuellement, en 2019 seulement, il y a une loi spéciale qui a imposé dans le code électoral un programme qu'on a appelé un bonus de femmes qui révèle la présence d'une femme sur la liste de chaque parti politique dans chaque circonscription électorale. Et c'est une première au Bénin qui nous a permis d'avoir le mandat en cours 20 femmes sur les 119, parce qu'aucun homme ne voulait laisser leur place. Il fallait donc créer la place de la femme à travers cette loi-là. Sauf que la loi est uniquement pour les élections législatives. Donc, le travail des OSI doit continuer pour que cette loi soit applicable également au niveau communal et au niveau local. Je vous remercie.
Merci.
Finalement, oui, vraiment, c'est un challenge auquel nous faisons face maintenant. Le thème est de manière c'est la lutte de la femme forte. Je pense qu'on va apprendre à se parler, on va apprendre à échouer, et ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on va faire. On va regarder entre pédagogie, mère, jeune fille, travailleuse, elle va être la plus parfaite, elle va être la mère parfaite qui a l'air de garçon, qui ne sera pas misogyne. Elle va être une charge mentale énorme pour les femmes. Et je pense qu'aujourd'hui, on doit prendre ça en compte et apprendre aux femmes. Ce que nous avons fait, c'est un exemple que je prends, mais pour ce d'ailleurs, d'apprendre à la femme à savoir que tu n'es qu'un être humain finalement, tu peux faire des erreurs, tu as droit à l'erreur. Et ça passe aussi par les femmes politiques. On les critique beaucoup, mais quand elles sont très là, elles peuvent faire beaucoup de choses. Et là, pour faire en tant que féministe, ce qu'on fait, c'est pas les tu n'as pas fait ceci, tu n'as pas fait cela, tu n'as pas fait ça pour les femmes. Comment les accompagner? Quand elles ne supporteraient pas de temps en temps aussi la majorité des femmes. C'est ce que je voulais ajouter. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. I think I want us to finish with time, but we can have the conversation. So when we come back after lunch, we can start with, maybe during your table in lunch, you can have this conversation. And when we come back, we'll take 10 minutes and then share again. So two things. One very important thing that I can gather from most of the things that have been said, it is very important that those laws are passed. Do you understand what I mean? The laws of parity, whether it's 30%, whether we must ensure that those laws are passed. When those laws are passed, it makes it easy to hold them to account. You have something to fight with. I don't know if you understand what I mean. You have something to call international attention to what the governance or the government in your different countries are doing, not standing by the law that they're saying. So I think it's so important that, for each of the countries that are still battling with the passing of those laws, I think advocacy and this is where coalitions become very important. We need to be able to look at countries that your sisters have gotten the law passed. What was the strategy? What changed? How were they able to get it today? Where someone will say, oh, the ones that have the laws, how many women are in politics? One step at a time. As I said, I worked with the Federal House of Reps for 1 year, and my eyes, being in the women's movement, doing advocacy, working on all other areas, and staying behind the scene and doing strategy for these men, and then not having to work in seeing what were the problems, the real, I don't mean the ones we write, the real problems that we don't talk about, that women don't get into political leadership. It was an eye-opener for me. And that's where the issue about negotiation comes. One of my sisters said, oh, the men have more money and more funding than the women that go into politics. And we talk about it. Women don't support women that are going into politics. Women don't fund other women that are going into politics. And I found out that the truth is, these men don't have money, but they negotiate power. They don't have money. 9. I am seeing this with statistical and data evidence, at least for my country. 9 out of 10 of the men in the House of Reps, they are semi-illiterate. I am telling you. That is not about the education. So these women are not educated. The women, the quality of women, what quality of the men? Those are not the conversations. The conversation is who is standing with the women and who is looking for those funding for the women. Because the men fund themselves and they negotiate power. I am going to run for president next year. I need you to support me. When I get there, she's going to ask me, so what is in it for me if I support you? If I give you $100 million, what will I get? And this is African politics. This is not what of things across the world, but in Africa. In the US, I had a bit of experience for about 6 months working with the lobbying. That was my first time of knowing that lobbying was a full-time job. And I learned so much. So they have a way of lobbying. They have their own ways. But African politics, it's about what is in it for me. How many minister positions will I get if you get there? Because not only are they going to put down the money, they're going to put down their contacts. They're going to work the country for you. They're going to move every machinery that they have. They're going to use their influence and their authority. How many women are ready to negotiate? Women are more morally bound. Morals. I don't do that kind of thing. It is not my religion, does not allow. And I ask, these men, don't they have religions? These men are our husbands, they are our brothers, they are our cousins. Don't they have morals? I say to people that there's something one presidential candidate in my country said, it's not served a la carte. You don't say, oh, je voudrais, I want it, it's nice. No, you take it, you grab it. Whatever you take, get the power first. then we can discuss morals. Unfortunately, and I say this with every sense of responsibility, unfortunately, that is what will make the change for women to get political power in Africa. If we're not ready to go the whole hog, we will still keep having these conversations around political parties' ideologies against women. That is why, because women are not in positions of authority within the political parties, that's why the political parties will say, you cannot do this if you are a member of our party. I don't know if you understand what I mean. But if you have the numbers of women, and the women are willing to work together, because that's also another issue. Because we can have 500 women in one political party, and 490 will decide that they will prefer to. Hello? Okay. So you can have 500 women in a political party, and 490 will want to take the line of the party. One longer time will be saying, no, we need to change how things are done. So in advocating for this thing as networks and coalitions, I see the power in coalitions, because if you look at coalitions like SORA, you look at coalitions like Feminists, some of the work that they've done, most of the jobs that they've done, most of the work and, what do I call it, the success that they've had came from combining their power and demanding for certain things to be changed. So if we talk about the political parties themselves, how many of us have signed up into political parties? How many of us have? How many of us are a member of political party yet? Hey, can I see your hands now? Don't be ashamed. Only 2. And we are sitting down here in Lome, talking about changing anything. These are the challenges. So, challenge. We're going to change it. You must become a member. I am a member. I took one. Yeah, that last election, I said, I talk about these things, and I'll be saying, no, I'm not a member of a political party. I've decided to run. And I have decided to do exactly what the men are doing. Yes. Until we get to the table. Because we must get the numbers. It's about the numbers. There is power in numbers. There is power in numbers. Let's not deceive ourselves. We can't be working in the women's movement, political movement, wanting to change things in politics and leadership, and we are not where it is happening. You're just dancing in circles. You're standing one place and you're dancing. You're not moving forward. Go and look for a political party that aligns with your ideologies and your country. Begin to attend word meetings. Make noise, even if you don't know what they're saying, just be making noise. That's what men do. This guy, in fact, that was one of the reasons why I said I am going to be a nuisance in the political party. Because this guy, he's what do you call these people? He's a vulcanizer. We call them vulcanizers. I don't know what to call them in French. He has this roadside, they fix towers. What do you call them? Antoinette. These people that have those small machines, they fix your car tire. Vulcan to get somewhere. How do we change the policies? How do we make social and economic justice even a reality? How? When that present article, I know how many of us, we did like 4 interviews to get that position to the House of Reps, to work on women political party. I know how much work I had to do on my own because I wanted that. I knew that was the next step for me to get in. The next step in my career level is that I have done all theoretical work. We've written the research documents. We know all the theory. We can train on it. Practical. What about practical? You're not getting there. I don't have to work for these politicians. But what is happening on the field itself? What are the things that I need to know that are not spoken out? If you don't go there, you will never understand it. And that's why I keep saying those women that get there. Because those women, they're not in the women's so they don't understand the issues. They know we have discrimination. They know we have religion and traditions and customs that work against us. They know there's not funding of women political parties. They know all these things. But the first thing for them is survival because they were nominated by the parties. When women work in the system, in the movement, gets into the system, you're going to bring in all the knowledge of how to convince women. I think on that table, working with local women, I think is one of the most difficult things, you know? Because they have a lot of effort. The traditions, the customs have gotten into their head. So changing them is a lot of work. Now, most of you have worked with these women. You have treated them. Why will it not be impossible when you get into the political system? You will not be able to change. But one person cannot make a forest. If only one person gets into a river, what will happen? The river will drown you. When you are afraid and you love each other. I don't know if you understand what I mean. When they love you, all of you will live. That is how to change things. And I hope that thinking about those things more, because all the challenges that we've seen lesser and lesser number of women in leadership, across leadership, not just politics, the leadership across. Well, it's so sad. Last dispensation, we had a good number of women in the House of Reps. I think it's reduced now to 3.2%. It's in fact, I feel so much about it. What are we doing? That's simply because they still don't understand. They need to change strategy. They need to change strategy. If you don't change your strategy, you're not going to get the traction. So with that few words of mine, I hope I've been able to convey to you. I want to convey you that we still have a lot of work to do. Beaucoup travail. But the most important thing is, if that's the only thing you take away from here, we want to get into leadership positions. Those of us that have worked in the field, we need to get in there. One day, you assume that you can work, but you can't get in there. Why? So many of us are creating now that by the time we live well, we're going to register for political parties. Let's start from there. Correct. I want to see those hands. You're not sure. To try. Just go and register first. But we're not going for elective positions. We're not saying run for election tomorrow. We're going to register the parties. Can I see your hand? Go and register. Just look for one party that you like. If you're not, the one that is the government, so that they can say yourself. And you go for ratings. Because I think that's what I was missing. Join them for Nigeria. Who's from Nigeria? Not from Nigeria. We go for it's whether you're hopeful or you're not hopeful, we don't go. You know? Then, please go and register. It is important. Go and register. also how we are also able to change leadership. Yes, my sister, yeah.
Merci bien. Ce que vous dites est exact. C'est vrai qu'il faut que nous soyons là, mais il faut tenir compte aussi des législations des différents pays. Parce que vous, quand vous êtes société civile, vous avez décidé de travailler dans un domaine bien précis, vous ne pouvez pas prendre des actions politiques. C'est difficile. Soit vous êtes politique, soit vous êtes société civile. Mais vous pouvez travailler sur la question politique, mais sans l'être. Parce que moi, par exemple, je suis de la société civile. Mon organisation, le comité de coordination pour la participation politique des femmes, je ne fais pas la politique, mais j'adresse des questions. Je travaille pour que ces femmes qui sont dans les partis politiques soient positionnées. Mais moi, je ne peux pas le faire, à moins que j'arrête d'être en société civile. En le faisant, si je suis parti politique, encore que je retourne auprès des femmes pour venir leur parler encore de leur participation, ou bien de tout ce qui est inégalité, parce que je ne serais pas bien vue.
Okay.
Donc, merci.
Okay, so I understand that perfectly. But I'm saying to you that some of us have been in the women's movement for 30 years. This agenda. What stops you from saying, we have pushed this agenda, we need to do the work inside? So even if you don't go in, there are women within the movement that can decide, like you said, in countries like that, are there women within the movement that you can encourage? You will support them, you will give them everything that they can go inside. Because the women's, I remember when I was in the African Union, one of the problems we had, particularly those of us that were from the women's movement, was that some of the commissioners, when the OAU became the AU, they now had commissioners. Some of the commissioners that were women, not of the women's movement. And so when we were talking about, then I think it was one of the solemn declaration, what's it called? The solemn declaration for women gender, women equality and gender. Going to be, the heads of state were going to consider it and approve it in Gambia then. We went to this woman, we wanted her to be the face, because she was in the African Union, she was the commissioner, and she was like, I don't do gender. And we're like, what is gender? Do you understand what I mean? Because first of all, she doesn't understand. So that's what I'm saying, that after 30 years of talking and pushing and training, we begin to encourage women who have been in the movement, who have seen the trouble, who have done the trouble. Let them get in there. If we don't, we will keep talking. And that's the truth. We must get in there. And we must get in there in numbers if we want to do the change. Because one person getting there cannot do the change. But if numbers getting in different political parties, they can come together and begin to change those things. Thank you very much.
Fantastique. Est-ce qu'on peut applaudir encore? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Félicitations à tout le monde. It was wonderful. Wonderful. De revenir encore sur les obstacles, sur les difficultés. C'est intéressant de se rappeler de cela encore et de savoir comment s'organiser à partir d'ici, n'est-ce pas? J'avais voulu qu'on fasse quelque chose. Quand on continue cette rencontre, sans parler des règles, du code de conduite. C'est ce que j'avais voulu faire. J'avais voulu que ce soit différent. Parce que moi, je suis fatiguée de ça. Donc, justement, remarqué que quand on parle de code de conduite, les gens ne suivent pas. Donc, je voudrais qu'on fasse notre code de conduite. Parce que c'est sérieux. C'est sérieux. C'est sérieux de veiller depuis l'Afrique du Sud à le monde, avec tout ce qui est comme tracas et de voir les autres en train de tapoter sur leur portable. S'il vous plaît, je veux prier. Mon ami, il va venir avec moi. Oui. Le participant, il va venir avec moi. Et rapidement, en 5 minutes, nous allons prendre 5 règles. Quelques règles qui vont nous conduire pendant ces 4 jours. Et nous allons nous atteler à suivre ces règles-là. Ces règles seront suivies de sanctions. J'ai vu que les gens ont leur ordinateur ouvert. Je présume que vous êtes en train de faire un rapport sur la session et que vous n'êtes pas en train de faire un rapport sur des activités au bureau. Je présume. Donc, nous allons rapidement, je vais faire un petit tour sur les 5 tables et chaque une règle. Des règles que nous allons suivre. On est d'accord? D'accord, merci beaucoup. Je commence avec la table ici, la table de la refa. Proposer une règle que tout le monde va suivre. Hello? Hello? On est ensemble? D'accord. Une règle ici, s'il vous plaît. Participer activement. Tout le monde est d'accord? La participation active. La table de derrière, vous êtes d'accord? La table de madame Konom. On est d'accord? D'accord. Limiter ou bien ne pas utiliser pendant la session? Comment limiter cela? C'est la question que je vous pose. Parce que assise là-bas, je vois les gens qui sont tous sur leur portable. Chers amis, ce n'est pas bien, d'accord? On est ici pour du sérieux et du très sérieux. Par rapport au portable, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Pardon? Oui, ici? Le micro, s'il vous plaît.
Il faut que nous évitions d'être trop accrochés à notre téléphone.
Oui. L'implication dans l'usage de notre portable. On est d'accord? Hello? Toujours la table de madame Kenom. On est d'accord? Est-ce que vous répondez à mes questions? C'est pour ça que je voudrais tout le temps attirer votre attention sur ce qui a été décidé ensemble. Est-ce qu'on est d'accord qu'on va limiter l'usage de nos téléphones? On est tous d'accord. Ici, on est d'accord. OK? La table du milieu. Une règle. Proposez-nous une règle. De faire de petits groupes entre nous. D'accord. On est d'accord? On va tous éviter de faire de petits groupes autour des tables. De petits groupes de discussion. Je crois que je vais changer de place à certaines personnes. Les sous-groupes de discussion. Établir une proposition de règles.
Alors, on s'était déjà entendu sur une proposition qui a été améliorée, donc je vais juste la répéter. D'accord. Que l'on ne laisse pas les téléphones sonner, que ce soit audible et que ça gêne tout le monde. C'était notre seule recommandation.
D'accord. Ici?
Respect of everyone's ideas.
Yeah. Le respect des idées des autres, le respect mutuel entre nous. Ça peut aller. Est-ce qu'il y a une autre règle qu'on doit nécessairement mettre sur le flip? Oui? être concis et précis, respect mutuel. C'est un seul L. Être précis, concis dans la prise de... Oui. Oui, oui. Laquelle, s'il vous plaît? OK. D'accord. Qu'est-ce qu'il dit? Pardon, OK. D'accord. C'est-à-dire ne pas parler français et anglais en même temps. D'accord. Non, non, là, on va pas. On a pris note de ça. C'est des suggestions techniques pour que le travail se passe bien. Oui? OK. Est-ce que ça rentre dans la précision dans les interventions? Je pense aussi. C'est bon? C'est bon? Et puis moi, je voudrais ajouter une dernière règle, c'est-à-dire on va éviter de se lever tout le temps. Quand on se lève tout le temps, ça provoque des distractions dans la salle. D'accord? S'il vous plaît, on va éviter de se lever tout le temps. Oui? La ponctualité, très important. Oui?
Je parlais de la ponctualité. Vu le programme, si nous ne tenons pas compte de cette ponctualité-là, on risque de terminer quelquefois même à 20 h. Merci.
Je suis d'accord avec vous. Il faut qu'on soit ponctuel parce que le programme est bien chargé. Il y a une session qui, habituellement, je fais cette session en 2 semaines et on a juste une journée, une journée pour parler. Donc, il faut qu'on soit ponctuel pour avoir le maximum sur l'agenda. On est d'accord. Donc, en gros, voilà les points qu'on a. Être ponctuel. La ponctualité. D'abord, la participation active, c'est notre règle numéro 1. Ensuite, il y a la limitation dans l'usage de mon téléphone. Très important. Ponctualité. Nous allons éviter de faire des petits groupes entre nous pour discuter d'autres choses, ou bien de faire des commentaires sur le sujet en discussion. Les discussions se font ensemble avec le micro pour que tout le monde puisse suivre et bénéficier de votre expérience. C'est important. Le respect mutuel. Sans le respect mutuel, nous n'allons pas aller loin. C'est important. La vie, chacun compte. Quand quelqu'un parle ou quelqu'un fait une proposition, quelque chose qu'on fait, il nous faut nous respecter mutuellement. Nous devons être précis dans nos interventions. Nous n'allons pas déborder. Prendre 5 minutes, 10 minutes pour parler de ce sujet, alors que les autres aussi voudraient intervenir. Rappelez-vous, c'est un partage d'expérience pendant ces 4 jours. Évitez de s'enlever tout le temps, de se promener, de sortir tout le temps. Et il faut qu'on soit ponctuel. D'accord? Tout ça n'argumente de balance s'il n'y a pas de sanction. Vous êtes d'accord avec moi? Donc, on va proposer d'autres sanctions, 2 ça suffit. Et on va être sérieux pour observer ça. Et tout de suite, on va désigner quelqu'un qui va nous aider à sanctionner. Je ne suis pas sûre que quelqu'un sera sanctionné. Parce que nous allons tous obéir à ces règles qu'on s'est librement, démocratiquement données. D'accord? Donc, 3 règles de proposition de sanction, pardon. Sanction. 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 Il me dit danser. Yes, bien. Oh, pardon, oui.
During the punishment,
Yes.
okay, sing and dance in your mother tongue.
Chanter, danser au même moment.
C'est une opportunité.
Chanter, danser toute seule. Sanction. Sanction, mon frère. Première sanction. Oui.
Moi, je me dis que chanter, danser va distraire encore davantage. J'aurais voulu qu'il y ait une sanction financière. Parce que les gens n'aiment pas sortir l'argent. Donc, oui, la personne paye 500 francs. Et puis
Sanction
voilà,
financière. Comment on va payer?
500 francs.
Si tout le monde est d'accord, on retient cette sanction-là. On est d'accord?
500 francs.
On semble ne pas être d'accord. On semble ne pas être d'accord. Donc, on fait une autre proposition de sanction. Moi, j'ai une sanction à proposer aussi. Autre proposition? Une sanction, oui. Je crois que ça peut rentrer dans ça. Hein? D'accord? La sanction que je voudrais proposer, c'est qu'on retire le portable à la personne qui ne va pas respecter sa règle. C'est trop fort? C'est trop fort? C'est bon? C'est bien de le faire. Je peux vous répondre si vous êtes d'accord avec moi. On retourne le portable à la personne qui ne respecte pas. Non? D'accord, dernière sanction avant de laisser la place à Grace qui a partagé avec nous quelques éléments de notre propre sécurité. C'est très important cette session, ça va durer juste quelques minutes. On est dans un autre pays, un pays qu'on ne connaît pas. Il faut prendre certaines précautions. Donc, elle va partager ces choses avec nous tout de suite, juste en quelques minutes avant qu'on aille à la pause. Ça suffit, cette sanction, ça suffit? Ça part là? D'accord. Est-ce qu'on peut applaudir pour nous, pour le titre? Les gens ne sont pas contents. Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais maintenant inviter Grace. Il n'y a pas d'interprète. Allô? On a besoin de traduction.
Yeah,
C'est bon, d'accord. Je disais que Grace va passer tout de suite pour quelques minutes avant le déjeuner et partager avec nous des points sur la sécurité. Sur notre sécurité à nous, nous sommes dans un pays étranger. Il y a certaines choses, des précautions à prendre. Grace, merci de prendre le micro.
Hello. Okay, very sorry. It's like the English is taking my French. I'm trying hard to keep a little bit of it. So I'm starting by where we are. So we have the hotel. So when we are out of the conference room, on your left, we have the washroom there. And then just opposite us is the restaurant. That's where we'll be having our lunch and tea breaks during the 4 days that we are here. So for those who are lodging, the international participant lodging in the hotel, anyway, about our employees, we were told we are in a very good security zone. I mean, for the I know I'm not that afraid of going out in the night, but it will be very prudent us not to stay too long, like very late in the night. Have some shops, and then a very big shops which is Champion. Whatever you need, you just cross the streets and then you get it. For your own security, it will be advisable to ask the reception the best. And for any other, and either 218, anything that you would like to will be in need or have a problem, come let me know, and then we'll try our best to solve it for you. Thank you.
S'il n'y a pas d'autres questions, on va aller rapidement au déjeuner. Pour venir, le déjeuner, c'est 1 heure de temps. Yeah. Can we take 1 hour for lunch? Yeah. Donc, c'est 1 heure de temps. Il est 13h27 à 14h27. Nous serons de retour dans la salle et nous serons ponctuels. Le reste des danger à Gadja du Togo. Bon appétit à tout le monde et à très bientôt.